German style sausage. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to use our German style sausage kit. Now when you say German style sausage, that can mean a number of different things. But for today's video, I'm going to walk us through something that closely resembles a bratwurst. For this sausage, we're going to be using a combination meat block of pork and veal. Pork and veal are very common in German sausage, along with beef, depending on what kind of sausage you're making. So to show you how I got here, let's back up a few steps. So there's a huge wide variety of German sausages. You've got Frankfurters, Knockwurst, Bratwurst. Today, we're going to be using our German style sausage kit. This sausage is probably going to closely resemble a bratwurst, but it's also going to be a more utilitarian version of the German sausage that you can use for a variety of different dishes. So the first thing we need to do is get our casings soaking in some water. Now when you open the kit, you're going to find two things. Number one is your seasoning packet. Now this is German bratwurst seasoning, and this is good for 25 pounds of meat. The other thing is our casings. These are our home pack hog casings that are packed in salt, so we need to give these a good rinse and soak them in some lukewarm water for about 45 minutes. This is going to make the casings a little more malleable and a lot easier to use once we start loading them onto the horn and stuffing our sausage. So you can see the salt that is packed in here. We need to get all that rinsed off. So this is lukewarm water. I'm just going to rinse the salt off as best I can here first. Just like that. Change out the water, kind of like you would be rinsing rice maybe. And you'll be able to feel once the salt is pretty much gone, and that's a pretty good indication that you should be ready to fill up your bowl and let them soak. I had my parts for the grinder in the freezer because when we make sausage, we want all of our parts to be as cold as possible to maintain that really low temperature of our meat block. To start our grind, we're going to start with a 3/8 inch plate, which I have right here. So we're going to get that set up and we'll go for our first grind. So here I have some cubed pork butt. You can also use pork trim if you have a local butcher that you work with, but this is going to be a great protein to fat ratio for our sausage. Again, going back to a really cold meat block, I've had this in the freezer for about half an hour at this point. We have what I like to call crusty edges, so it's just firm, so it's going to stay nice and cold as it works its way through the grinder. For our second grind, we're going to use our 3/16 plate, which is going to give us a nice coarse cut for our final product. So after our two grinds, we have a really nice fat to protein ratio here that you can see, and we still have really nice particle definition, which means our fat and our proteins didn't smear together, which means we kept it nice and cold. Again, once we start building this protein extraction, which is the binding of the proteins and the fats, we don't want them to be so smeared together. Otherwise, we'll get a really crumbly final product that the texture is just not good. So, we're off to a really good start. Another classic protein to use in German sausage is veal. So again, working with my local butcher, I got a few pounds of ground veal here that I'm going to add into our ground pork, and we're going to get our final weight of our meat block. I've got about 11.25 pounds, 11.25 pounds of our meat block. So we need to do a little bit of math so we can weigh out the appropriate amount of seasoning for our batch. Now it's going to come out to about 176 grams of seasoning for our batch size. We also want to add a little bit of moisture in the form of water to our bratwurst. You could add beer, you could add some beef or pork stock as well. We're just going to use water. This is nice and chilled, so again, keeping our meat block cold. A good rule of thumb that I like to use for amount is about 1 ounce per pound of meat. So we're just over 11 pounds, so I'm going to use 11 ounces of water. And this is distilled water. In goes our seasoning. Now this seasoning is going to have all the salts, sugars, and spices that you want in that classic German sausage flavor profile. So you shouldn't need to add anything. Unless, of course, you like a little extra pepper or a little extra garlic, you can go ahead and add those yourself. In with our water. And now it's time to mix. We're just going to get in there, mix it all together. So that water I added is going to do two things. A, it's going to add moisture to our sausage, but it's also going to help attach that seasoning to the meat and distribute it really well throughout our meat block. And I think we're just about there. The seasoning should be really well mixed, and we've developed some really good protein extraction. The meat will get really sticky, stick to your hand. So I'm ready to then stuff our sausage, which means I'm going to set this in the fridge for a little bit while I get our stuffer set up. So I've got our sausage stuffer set up, and I'm going to fill the hopper here with our meat block. And as I fill it, I'm going to start with a good handful of meat. I'm going to place it in the center and kind of push down so it works out towards the walls of the hopper. And this will help to avoid any air pockets so that we don't get them in our final sausage. So I'll bring down the plunger, and you'll feel it as it hits the meat block, and you're going to want to push the meat block about 90% through the horn here. And as soon as I feel it on my finger, I'm going to back off the pressure and start loading on my casings. And it's already there. So I'm going to grab my casings and we'll start stuffing. So these are 32 to 35 millimeter natural hog casings. I'm just going to dip them in the water a few times. It's going to pull some extra water through the casing to give it a final rinse. Put a little water on the horn to lube it up. Start threading on our casing. Now some of these strands are longer, some are shorter. So we'll get a little water down on the table here to help our sausage from sticking. Looking pretty good here. A little air pocket, so we'll knock those loose. Now if you get a little bit of air in there, that's fine, because we can always go back afterwards and eliminate some of those, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. And once you can't crank anymore, back off the pressure a little bit. So when you start linking, the first sausage, you're going to spin towards you. So we're going to measure it out, and if you're doing this for the first time or just still getting used to measuring how long you want your links to be, a little trick is you can put some Scotch tape down on your table, and I marked it with Sharpie so I won't damage the countertop, and then you have your measurement. So we know between those two lines, that's where we're going to pinch. And then, starting at the second one, pinch at the measurement. The second one, you're going to spin away from you. Okay? Now, measure, pinch. We're actually going to skip this one and go one more. Because that way, if we twist this away from us again, this one is automatically twisted, the one behind it. So again, we're going to measure and pinch, skip, measure, pinch, and twist away from us. Now see, this one has a big air pocket right in the middle there. So we're going to take our sausage pricker or a very fine tip knife, just give it a poke. Give it a gentle little squeeze to kind of work that air out. Now, if you wanted to leave a whole ring like this and skewer it through like that, grill it or smoke it that way, that is 100% a delicious way to prepare this German sausage. Now, I'm going to go through, see if I missed any air pockets. It wasn't too bad. Now I'm going to set these on a tray and set them in the fridge, preferably overnight. I don't feel like waiting that long to try one, so I'm going to give them about an hour or so while I clean up. I'll fry one up and give it a try. Our sausages are all linked up. I broke them down, so for a lot of these, I'm going to vac pack them and get them in the freezer. But I obviously want to eat some now, and there's a lot of different ways to cook them. Now there's tons of ways you can cook these. You can grill them, you can smoke them, pan fry, oven. It really comes down to your own preference. Here in Wisconsin, a lot of people like to boil them with some beer and onions. But today, I'm just going to do a simple pan fry so I can get the basic flavor profile of our final product. So I've got just the teeniest amount of oil in our pan, and I'm going to start over medium-low heat. These browned up really nicely in the pan, and I'm just going to go in for the taste right away because my mouth is literally watering. So, look, oh man, look how juicy that is. Can you get that? Beautiful. The salts and the sugars are balanced perfectly. Good with all those classic German flavors in the sausage. And the veal gives it really nice extra richness. Texture is great, so we had good protein extraction, holding the fats and the proteins together, so we have a really nice bite. And this overall just turned out really well. So this is pretty close to a bratwurst, but the idea was to make it a little more utilitarian, so you can use it for other things. So you can just do it like this. Serve it with some sauerkraut, some of our beer hall mustard. Sounds great. Could serve it with some spätzle and some braised cabbage. Just lots of options for this German style sausage. If you like this recipe and want to see more, head to psseasoning.com. If you really like the video, hit subscribe for more content. And as always, you can check us out on all forms of social media. Until next time, I'm Chef Jed. Thanks for watching.